Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Faye. Welcome to our 7EDU open class. So today we'll talk about AP US history. So if you have any questions or any feedback, you can type in Q&A and chat box. So first of all, let me introduce our teacher, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Sarah is one of the most highly qualified teachers at 7EDU with over 20 years of professional teaching experience and certifications to teach English, German, and history. She attended Texas A&M University, where she earned 4 degrees, including bachelor degree in history, English, and German, and a master's degree in educational human resource development. In addition, she also earned a Juris Doctor degree from Regent University School of Law. Sarah understands the struggle a student may face going through high school from her past experiences, which sparked her passion about teaching and inspired her to be a super teacher to others. Okay, let's welcome Sarah.
Okay, I'm muted. I can't unmute. Okay, good. You can hear me. That's all that counts. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the technical issue on my part. I'm not a technical person. All right, so today we're going to go over what exactly to expect on the AP US History test. And I'll be going over the different topics that are tested, some sample problems, some common mistakes, and some tips to do your best. Now, it has 4 sections. The test has 4 sections. You have the multiple choice questions. Those are 55 questions with 55 minutes. So roughly you have a minute per question. You have short answer questions, which there are 3 of those. Those you get 40 minutes total for. The long essay question, which is 1 question, you have 40 minutes to answer that. And the document-based question, which is usually just referred to as the DBQ, that's 1 essay question, but you're given 7 documents you need to use when formulating your answer. Now you're given 60 minutes for that one. Now, the AP US History, it stresses the understanding of the 7 key historical thinking skills. Historical causation, where you look back to see what issues were going on that led to a specific event in history. You have patterns of continuity and change over time. This is where the themes come in, and we'll talk about those later. Comparison, that's where you can compare different opinions of what caused what was the cause or the outcome of a specific historical event. Contextualization, that's when you have to take a historical event and put it in its context. For example, World War I, okay, it ended with the Treaty of Versailles. People didn't just one day say, let's have World War I. No, there are a bunch of factors that led up to the war itself. And then with the Treaty of Versailles following it, that sets the stage for World War II. You see, you need to put it into the context. You can't just pull it out and try to do it in isolation. Then you have historical argumentation, where you're going to have to use the 7 different skills. You look at all the big picture, you look at the different elements that created a historical event, and you make an argument that you can support. Analyzing evidence. For that, you need to be able to look at a piece of evidence, like in the documents, and determine the purpose of it, the audience for it, who wrote it, if it's a treaty or whatever, who it favors. And finally, interpretation. And interpretation plays a big role in the DBQ. Now, the AP US history exam divides history up into 8 themes and 9 time periods. You have the themes are American and national identity, work, exchange and technology, geography and the environment, migration and settlement, politics and power, America and the world, American and regional culture, and social structures. You'll see that in any time period, these are at play. Okay, they don't go away. They're always under the surface. Now, the historic time periods are weighted. So, for example, 1491 to 1607 is 4 to 6% of the test. You may have one, max 2 questions on that time period. 1607 to 1754 is 6% to 8%. Again, you're not going to have multiple questions, 2, maybe 3 tops. Now, 1754 through 1980, that can be 10 to 17% of your test. And then 1980 to the present is 4 to 6%. Because you have to remember, anything after 1980 is relatively new, and it's hard to come up with the questions, have them field tested, make sure they're okay, and then put them in a test. It's also good because most AP teachers end up, when they're doing all this with their class, they get kind of bogged down. So when it comes to crunch time, they'll say 1980 to the present, boom, watch a video, done. They don't have the time to go into a lot of detail with that. So that's a good reason, and luckily only 4 to 6%. Now, sample multiple choice questions. Okay, it's not enough to think you can just memorize. Oh, I'm pretty good at memorizing dates and people's names and what happened. No, you're doing the A push. You're getting college credit. That means you have to do college work, obviously. Now, this is what a typical sample, the typical multiple choice question is. Okay, where they give you an excerpt. Okay, this is Nathaniel Bacon's manifesto from 1676. And then, which of the following types of evidence would best be used to support Bacon's argument in the excerpt? So not only do you have to know about historical argumentation, you have to know who Nathaniel Bacon was and what led up to his issuing the manifesto. Now, I have some sample short answer questions. Now, United States historians have debated the role of collective security in determining US foreign policy in the late 20th century. Using your knowledge of United States history, answer parts A and B. And if you notice, there's 2 parts. You must answer both parts. Choose one of the organizations listed below and explain to what extent membership in this organization was a continuation or departure from US foreign policy in the 20th century. Provide at least one piece of evidence to support your explanation. You have your choice of these 3, okay? So whichever one you pick, you're going to have to explain how it helped determine foreign policy. If it changed or if it was a continuation. Remember, we have the change or continuation over time. That's where this comes into play. And then part 2, B, briefly explain why one of the other options is not as persuasive as the one you chose. Okay, you have the historical argumentation here again. Sample document based question, your DBQ. Evaluate to the extent to which differing ideas of national identity shaped views of United States overseas expansion in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, using the documents provided. As I mentioned before, they'll give you 7 documents. The thing about it is, if you want full credit for all, you want to earn all the points in this section, you really need to use all 7 documents. But you need to know how to categorize them. You need to know where you can fit each one in. And that's one thing we cover in the review class, how to quickly go through your documents and how you can classify them and figure out where you can insert them and reference them in your essay. The sample long essay question, okay, here we go. To what extent did the American Revolution represent change and or continuity over time in relation to how colonists reacted to the British imperial authority? Again, we have the change and or continuity over time. So you have to know not only what was happening that caused the American Revolution, but you also have to be able to identify what's going on with the British imperial authority, how it remained the same, or how it changed over time, say from the French Indian War, or even before that, the period of sovereign neglect, okay? Now, some of the common mistakes. One can be successful on the multiple choice section simply by memorizing dates, people, and events. We've already seen that will not work, okay? You can't just memorize. You have to be able to apply that knowledge to different situations. Like in our sample, you have to know who Nathaniel Bacon was. You have to know what was happening at the time period. You have to know what caused him to write his manifesto. And then you have to be able to use those skills, those 7 historical skills, and you have to be able to determine which would be the best evidence if he were to use it. Another misconception, approaching the short answer question as mini essays. There's no need to construct an introductory or concluding paragraph. That wastes time. And students, you have been drilled into your heads. It's been drilled. Introduction, body, conclusion. Well, that's just going to waste time here. You just need to answer the question, short, sweet, to the point, but you cannot use bullet points. It has to be a paragraph. And finally, don't think the DBQ is just another analysis paper. It's not. You have to be able to use all those historical thinking skills. You have to be able to apply your outside knowledge, as they call it, what you know from American history, to interpret those documents and use them to support your argument. Now, to prepare for the APUSH, to do well, you have to invest time not only in learning all the facts and the details, but to be familiar with the multiple choice section of the test. You have to know the kinds of questions they're going to ask. Remember, 55 questions, 55 minutes. So you have to know, you have to be able to identify what are they looking for and do it quickly. The more you are familiar with this section, the less the time limit is going to be an issue. Practice categorizing and analyzing documents associated with a DBQ using the 7 historical thinking skills. We will go over strategies, but you need to practice, the student needs to practice them on their own as well. Understand the meanings and uses of the 7 historical thinking skills. Again, historical causation, patterns of continuity and change over time, comparison, contextualization, historical argumentation, analyzing evidence, and interpretation. This is what you'd be expected to be, you need to be able to do well in a college history class. So that's why the APUSH requires it. You're getting college credit. Now, this is a big test. It's a difficult test, but anybody who signed up for it, I truly believe knew what they were getting into, and they're willing to commit the time and the effort to do well, and I'm here to help. So I hope you will take advantage of it. Any questions? Which AP US history? Well, there's several out there. Usually the one chosen by the school is the one that's going to do the best. There's like 2 or 3. You can research them online. But what I found is the school's choice are the best because they've vetted those books. The teachers are very familiar. They know exactly what they have to teach, and the books they choose will help them with that challenge because they have a lot of work. Okay, your students have a lot of work and the teachers have to put in a lot of work. From what I've read on the College Board website, they are allowing the students to take the test from home. I haven't heard I haven't been able to find out or read anything about what the dates are. I'm sure they'll either be on the date they were originally scheduled, or they will be after, since the students don't have the access to their teachers like they normally would. And so a lot of it they're having to do on their own. Whereas in class, they would be doing DBQs. They would be doing the short answer, not only learning the material, but learning how to apply it. So here they're at a disadvantage. So I'm sure they will take that into account when scheduling. The APUSH still has the sections I talked about. It has the multiple choice section, 55 questions, 55 minutes. You'll have the short answer where you have 3 questions, 40 minutes. You'll have the long essay, which is 40 minutes, 1 question. And then you'll have the DBQ, which is 60 minutes. But they recommend you take no more than 20 minutes to read your documents and classify them before you start, and do a little prep work before you actually start writing. Online resources, there are many out there. If you just do a Google search of APUSH, you can just put capital APUSH, notes or sample essays, sample questions. There is a ton out there if you need extra practice. There's also, you can buy the books. But what we offer, you can do the mock tests as well, and then we review those as well as the essays. And you get somebody who can help them instead of trying to go through, the online class that they take from school, or try to catch your teacher in an email and explain what's going on. So you have the one-to-one time as well. Let's see. I'm not sure about if they would grade more, have the higher standard since it's online. You have to remember, if they're doing the test online under the current situation, that means they're going to be graded online as well. Typically, in any given year, what would happen is, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Do you expect the questions to be harder or graded more harshly since the test will be taken online? Well, normally this is how the essay portion is graded. All those essays, all the written part, what they do after the test, there are quite a few. I mean, we're talking probably 100 or more AP teachers. Okay, AP US history teachers. and they've been vetted, and they get together at various locations, and they spend a week, 3 to 5 days, I think, actually reading and grading the essays. Well, with the current problem that we're facing, if the students are taking the test online and with people having to stay home, I'm assuming that what they will do is now they will be graded online as well. So the multiple choice, it's either right or it's wrong. There's always some, leeway when you're grading the essays, but they have strict rubrics that they have to go by. I also know that I've done it before myself, when you're grading standardized tests that have essays in them, they're graded twice, sometimes 3 times. So the first grader will go through, they'll put their assessment. It goes to a second reader, they'll put their assessment. And they can't differ by more than a point. If there's 2-point difference, it goes to a third reader. Okay, and then they look at all that and they take the average of what's, and they'll discuss any issues. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? So I don't think the multiple choice will be any harder. I don't think any of the essay questions will be any more difficult. You have to realize, before they put a test together, they have to come up with the questions. They have to test them. That's why when they take, certain standardized tests or the SATs or whatever, it's understood that some of those test questions are actually test questions. They have to make sure that the question is correctly worded so that people will not misinterpret what they're asking for. That takes a long time, multiple tests. If it's a good question, it stays. If it's bad, they throw it out and start over. So it takes at least 18 months or more, at least 18 months. Usually it's longer than that, to actually create a new question for one of these tests. That's why you're going to have trouble finding complete release tests that are more current. Because once they spend the time, money, and effort to make those questions, they don't want to let them go till they got to let them go. So, because, they can't replace them overnight. So I don't see anything like that changing. It's going to be the same level of difficulty. That's not to say they may choose to focus on, they may use some of their questions that focus on things that are more relevant. Not sure. I don't have access to that information. But I do know that we go through released mock tests, and we cover not only the material, but the different strategies. How do you attack these questions? Because you have to remember, the people that make up these questions, they want to make sure you have these skills before they're going to award you college credit. And there's certain things you can do that will help you get through, for example, the multiple choice section more quickly and more accurately. Okay, and the information, all the details, so you have to be able to categorize what kind of question is this very quickly. Any other questions? What type of students should choose to take the AP US History in high school? Would it benefit them for college credit? Yes, it would benefit them, but the students who I believe if you're motivated enough, you can do almost anything. But the students who can write well will do well. They'll do better than a student who's not very good at writing, because of the essays. They have to be dedicated to do it. That's a big part. They have to be willing to put in the work, and it's a lot of work. It is worth it though, because if they do well, if they get a 4 or a 5, which is the grading scale, 5's perfect, okay, it's a perfect score, and then 4, they will get the credits that if they had taken the freshman history class. It gives them a head start. It frees up a slot in their schedule in their freshman year, and it saves money because now they don't have to take that class. They don't have to buy the books, and they don't have to pay for the credits. They've already earned them. So it can put them ahead as far as, you know, if they want whatever their major is, maybe they can do another prerequisite where before they'd have to wait to the second semester of their first year. So that's the advantage. But again, they have to be able to write well. They have to be able to use complex thinking. Okay. Okay. So if you're just joining us, I'll give you a quick recap. The APUSH exam, it has a multiple choice question, 55 questions, 55 minutes, so roughly a minute per question. You have the short answer questions, which are 3 questions. You have 40 minutes to answer all 3. You have the long essay, 1 question, 40 minutes to answer that. And then you have the document-based question, commonly known as the DBQ. Okay, that is the hardest essay question. With that question, you are given 7 documents. They all are linked in some way, and you are given the question. You need to be able to read your documents, categorize them, and figure out how you can use them to support your argument, whatever your answer is to the question. To get all the points that you can earn on that, you need to use all your documents. You have 60 minutes to do that. College Board recommends that you take 15 to 20 minutes to read through your documents, categorize them, do some planning on what you're going to write about, how you're going to organize it, and then write. If a student can only take one AP class between world history and US history, which one to choose and why? Well, it depends on the university they're planning to go to, okay? And it also depends on what their interest is. If you're not interested in going back to Mesopotamia and, you know, the upper and lower kingdom of Egypt and all that, then don't go to world history, because you go all the way back to hunters and gatherers and Mesopotamia and the very beginning of civilization. If a student finds that boring, then don't go there. Stick to AP US history. Most people take AP US history over the other ones. That's more than take the world history, more than take the European history. It's less information, which makes sense because the United States has only been around, you know, since officially 1776. They take you back to 1491, 1492, but that is that's like 6% of the test. So, which is 1 to 2 questions, maybe 3. So you're having to deal with a lot less information than you do with world history or European history AP tests. And you can relate a lot easier or more easily to the US history, I think, because if your student is also taking American literature, you will see some of those, the influence of the history of the time the piece was written, and they can start making those connections. If a student is STEM major, do they need to take history class in university? I do believe they do. I think it's one of the basics. I mean, that's the way it was when I was in university, and I will not go into how long ago that was, but you had to have freshman composition, which were the freshman English classes. You had to have, they had to have two history classes, I believe. You'd have to look at what colleges you're interested in. But even if you're an engineering student, okay, or a biochemistry student, universities, they want the student to be well-rounded. So you're going to have to take some history classes. You may have to take a couple philosophy classes. You're going to have to take English classes, because they want to, when people graduate, they want them to be what they call well-rounded students, okay? Whether or not again, you'd have to double check the requirements of the specific university, but usually it's just 2 history courses or 3 history courses. That's the way it was for me. Of course, I have a history degree, so I had to take a lot more, including world history. That's how I know what it's about, besides teaching the review class. How should I best prepare for the 2020 APUSH exam, which is just a DBQ in 45 minutes? It is in 3 weeks. Well, now, the DBQ, if you're going, it's in 3 weeks, you need to know the material. You need to be able to focus on the themes. You got to focus on the themes. You got to focus on the historical periods and the trends. You have to be able to look at your documents, read them, digest them, categorize them, and then be able to organize your thoughts quickly, and then do the formulate your answer. And remember, if you want the full credit for that section, you need to use all your documents. If you only have 3 weeks, if the date is not changing, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to live the stuff for quite a while. You're going to have to put in a lot of time. What classes are you teaching next? What is your teaching style like? Well, if you ask my former students, they think I'm insane, which is fine with me. They say I'm not normal. I don't want to be normal. I try to keep, we stay on task. We address the issues. I use a lot of humor. I refuse to let people think they are stupid. We're all stupid in something, okay? Or ignorant. There's a difference between stupid and ignorant. Ignorant is temporary, stupid is forever. I approach every student as if they could do anything they desire to do. You want to put in the effort, you want to put in the work, you want to ask relevant questions, I'm here. I will do my best to explain it in a way that you can understand it and that it clicks, okay? Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. I struggled in high school, and I was made to feel ignorant. And I will not let one of my students, whether it's for the APUSH review, whether it's somebody I work with to do their homework, I will not allow them to go through that terror. It's not right. Just because they don't learn the same way as the teacher teaches, or they want to make cookie cutter students. It doesn't work that way. You have to meet the student where they are, and then you bring them forward. If they missed something in the past, they missed it. It doesn't do any good to finger point. You should have learned this in 5th grade. What's your problem? Well, they didn't. It doesn't matter why they didn't. The thing is, they didn't. So now they got to learn it, and you got to teach it. And I've seen too many times in high school especially, where teachers assume that they have learned something, especially in high school, in English. Well, they don't go over grammar. Well, they think we've already learned it. And they'll just write comments on our paper, but we don't know what they mean. Well, that's not teaching and that's not effective. Take them back to their starting point. You bring them forward, whatever that starting point is. What classes am I teaching next? I don't know. I know I'll be doing the APUSH review. I do a lot of different classes. Whatever they need me to do, I do it. So you would have to ask the powers that be, because they're in sales and I'm just in teaching. You know, I give the information and help kids digest it. But if you can't tell, teaching is not a job for me. It's a calling. It's what I was meant to do. And I have developed strategies based on my experience and my past, where I can break things down. I don't know how, but I can break down complex things, these concepts. And let's look at the big vocabulary, short story elements, antagonist. Okay, that's the bad guy. Don't worry about the $10 word. It's the bad guy. Okay, so that's what I do. And I do it with the APUSH as well. Most of these kids that are taking the APUSH, they're sharp. They are sharp. Sometimes they give me a run for my money. You know, I have to study too, because I will never say I know something if I don't. So I study before every class, because I don't have an eidetic memory. I'm not a Mensa member. I don't know everything out there. Okay, so I have to study too, to be prepared. I don't go to classes. It doesn't matter what class I'm teaching. I prepare for it as best I can. That you have is a guarantee. I also require my students to make me a promise. Every student, they have to promise me the minute I lose you, the minute you do not understand what I said, you have to tell me. You have to, because then I can stop and I can bring you forward and we can get rid of the confusion. Don't wait to the end of the class and say, well, I'm kind of lost. Where did I lose you? After good morning. Don't do that. It's counterproductive. But again, I give it my all, no matter what I'm teaching, no matter whom I'm teaching, it doesn't matter. I take my job very seriously, and I will do my best to help your students meet their goals.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. And thank you for attending today's open class. Sarah's AP US history will start in 1 week. If you guys have any, if are interested in this class, or if you have any other questions, or if you want to take mock tests to have the evaluation, please feel free to contact us. And next AP open class is about, it's about AP Physics 1 and C with teacher Colin. The time is 6 p.m. to 6:45 p.m. So see you guys tomorrow and have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.